If someone else can control what you focus your attention on, what you are aware of, and what occupies your thoughts, then that someone can easily control your perceptions, your fears, your emotions, and to a large extent, your behavior. And he can do all of that even without telling you anything untrue. Consider, as one example, the recent absurd level of fear-mongering relating to the whole COVID-19 thing. Now, even though there is so much about the official COVID death toll that has been hugely exaggerated and fudged all over the place, for this video, let's just accept the current numbers that the government would have you believe. Somewhere over 100,000 Americans dead from COVID-19. If this is the total population of the United States, then this is the total number of deaths attributed to COVID-19. That is a bit worse, somewhere between 25 and 50% worse, than the estimated number of Americans who died from the common flu a couple years back. So, ask yourself, has the media been talking about COVID-19 about 25 or 50% more than they talked about the flu a couple years ago? No. Those in government and the media have been talking about COVID-19 about 10,000 times as much as they ever talked about the flu. And that's not an exaggeration. They have harped on this thing night and day, every chance they get for months now, throwing it into every conversation everywhere to an insane degree. And please don't pretend that, if not for all the shutdowns and ridiculous social distancing silliness, that this would have been 10,000 times as bad. Even if you want to pretend that it would have been twice as bad if there weren't all the shutdowns, staying at home, mask wearing, standing 6 feet apart, putting shields up everywhere, that still wouldn't nearly have justified this level of obsessively harping on this day after day. So why? Even if the death toll had been twice as bad as the flu, which it wasn't nearly, why talk about it literally thousands of times as much? Why do that? And what is the result of doing that? The result, the intended result, is fear. It's not about caution or honesty or good intentions or caring about people. It's about deceiving people by aiming their focus at one thing over and over again until they obsess about it, worry about it, think about it day and night, and then put up with totally asinine so-called solutions to a problem which, for the vast majority of us, is statistically trivial. Let me say that again, because even though this is provable, it will probably cause a lot of people to have emotional tantrums. The threat from COVID-19 is and has always been statistically trivial for the vast majority of us. For most of us, we don't need to worry about it or do anything about it or focus on it or think about it at all. Watch carefully, because this is what has had so many people hiding in terror. If this is the entire population of the United States, over 300 million, then this tiny square is the total number of COVID-19 deaths so far, according to the government. And out of that number, only around 2% of those deaths, this even smaller square, represents COVID-19 deaths among people younger than age 45. And even in that tiny square, nearly all of those people already had serious pre-existing medical conditions causing them to have weak immune systems. So, for young, healthy people to be worried about dying from this disease is just ridiculous. In fact, if the media and the government hadn't decided to smash it in your face day after day, forcing you to focus on it and hear about it and think about it and be aware of every detail and every update and every theory and every story related to it, most of you literally wouldn't even know that coronavirus existed. And the proof is that most of you didn't know that somewhere around 80,000 people died from the flu a couple years ago. Did you? Now, people who have compromised immune systems and those who take care of such people are mostly aware of this. They're the ones who need to be. People who are elderly or have fragile systems need to be very careful every year about all sorts of diseases that can be the last straw, which makes their system collapse entirely and kills them. For those people, a lot of viruses, bacteria, and other problems are a real threat and worthy of their attention. For the rest of us, they aren't. Now, you might say, what's wrong with erring on the side of caution? Okay, so maybe the threat was overblown and exaggerated, but what harm does it do to be overly cautious? A lot. The answer is it does a massive amount of harm, and we're only just starting to see the harm which will come from this idiotic fear-mongering and the absurd reactions to it. Let me throw in an analogy here. Suppose the US media decided to start running lots and lots of stories about mountain lion attacks. And politicians started talking about that a lot as if it's a serious problem, a crisis that we all need to be aware of. They could truthfully tell you that a number of Americans have been attacked and killed by mountain lions. They could truthfully tell you that there are estimated to be between 20,000 and 40,000 wild mountain lions in this country. They could truthfully tell you that many millions of Americans live in or visit territories of wild mountain lions. They could truthfully tell you about thousands of Americans who have encountered mountain lions in the wild. And they could truthfully give reports in gruesome detail of people who were violently attacked and wounded, maimed, or killed by mountain lions. And they could talk about it and report about it day and night without having to lie about any of it. Now, would that be an honest thing for them to do? Well, in one sense, if they only stated and reported accurate information, you could say it's honest. But if the implied message was that everyone needs to worry about this, no, that wouldn't be honest at all. It would be ridiculous. To give you the actual stats, on average, there is about one mountain lion attack per year in the US, and the majority of people who are attacked don't die from it. In fact, in the past 100 years, there have only been about 24 fatal mountain lion attacks in the US, which averages out to about one every 4 years. In a population of about 328 million people, that means that averaged out in any given year, any randomly selected American would have less than a 1 in a billion chance of getting killed by a mountain lion. Hardly something you need to focus on or worry about. But hey, what's wrong with a little caution? Well, imagine that the media had harped on the dangers of mountain lions for days and weeks, and then you went for a walk in the mountains. Let's say the mountains of Arizona, where I have often strolled and where mountain lions live. And having watched those scary news reports, you decided, just to be on the safe side, that you would keep your eyes up above you on the cliffs and hilltops around you, since that's where mountain lions tend to hunt from. You keep a wary eye up there, and then you step on a rattlesnake and get bit on the foot. Oops. About 7,000 to 8,000 times a year, Americans get bitten by rattlesnakes, usually by unwittingly stepping on or next to them. So, in our hypothetical example, having your awareness and caution focused on something extremely unlikely, a mountain lion attack, just helped to get you harmed by something way more likely, a rattlesnake bite. So your caution about mountain lions endangered your life. Way to go. Now, luckily for you, of the thousands of people who get bitten by rattlesnakes every year, on average only about 5 actually die from it. That's still a lot higher than the number of people who die from mountain lion attacks, but still pretty damn rare. You should probably be a bit careful when strolling around where venomous snakes live, but you don't need to obsess and worry about it nonstop. Breaking it down to statistical averages, each year about 1 out of every 60 million Americans will die from a rattlesnake bite. Sad, but not something most of us need to worry about. Now, let's suppose that the news stories about mountain lion attacks scared you so badly that you decided to just never go for walks outside again at all, just to be on the safe side. In fact, let's say that 1 million people were so scared that they all stopped going for walks outside entirely. It doesn't hurt to be cautious, right? Well, yes, it does, but the cost will show up in a very different way. For example, if 1 million people dramatically decreased their exercise levels due to never walking outside again, those 1 million people would significantly increase their chances of dying from all sorts of real risks, such as heart failure, that come from being out of shape, overweight, weak, etc. Sitting in your house in terror for the rest of your life could very easily take years off of your life. But unlike the thought of a mountain lion attack, that's not an imminent traumatic threat and not something you will be living in constant terror of. So you avoid the statistically trivial threat by staying inside, getting weaker and deconditioned until you die at age 70 instead of age 80. And those other 1 million people also lose years off of their lives from being cautious. But you can't point to a single one who's going to die today horribly just from not taking a walk. That's not how it works. That threat is distant, vague, unknown, and therefore easy to ignore, but just as real. How many Americans have been walking around wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart while getting no exercise, eating a horrendous diet, and being completely out of shape? A lot. They keep doing what is almost guaranteed to take years off of their lives while focusing on something which will, in all likelihood, have precisely no effect on their lifespan. Now, to add one more thing to the mountain lion analogy, suppose you live in downtown Detroit, for example. If that is the case and you get scared into never going outside because of mountain lions, you're kind of an ignoramus, since mountain lions don't live anywhere near Detroit. But who would do something that stupid? Who would obsess over, worry about, and take action to prevent something that poses pretty much no threat to them? Many millions of young, healthy Americans. That's who. In fact, all of the young, healthy people out there now wearing masks, standing 6 feet apart, washing their hands incessantly, being scared to go out, and so on. Just like mountain lion attacks or even rattlesnake bites, it's not just random whether you will be a victim of COVID-19. It's not Russian roulette. If you stroll around where mountain lions or rattlesnakes live, it might be worth a moment of your thought. If you don't, then worrying about it is just plain stupid and silly. And in case you haven't noticed the media admitting this 10,000 times, the vast majority of people who have died from COVID-19, again, accepting at face value the numbers claimed by government, were elderly or had existing health problems that made their immune systems vulnerable. In other words, people who could just as easily have been killed by the common flu or a number of other things. As for young people without immune system problems, worrying about this is just ridiculous. But because the media wants everyone to be afraid, they have tried so hard to find stories about young, healthy people dying from COVID-19 and have gotten caught lying over and over again in the process. But even if there was one young, healthy person, or 10, or 100 who died from COVID-19, that is still statistically trivial and not something that most young, healthy people should waste 1 second worrying about or trying to avoid. But most people are completely ignorant about scale and statistical probabilities. If they see something on the news over and over again, if their focus is aimed at something day after day, then they will think that it matters. They will fear it and worry about it, even if in the real world, in real terms, the threat it poses to them is statistically damn near zero. And that is exactly what has happened with the insane overhyping of this relatively trivial disease. For the vast majority of us, it doesn't matter at all. Now, some people, having been manipulated by fear, combined with their own ignorance, will want to feel that they are more in the know and more caring for being worried about what the media told them to be worried about. So they will eagerly declare that if you are not scared out of your mind by COVID-19 and not engaging in all the pointless social distancing silliness, then you must want people to die. And that's just stupid. By analogy, pointing out that most people have no need to worry about mountain lion attacks doesn't mean that you don't care about the very, very rare case in which someone is killed by a mountain lion. It means instead that you understand scale, statistics, and probabilities, and understand what does and what does not justify constant extreme obsession and anxiety. For the vast majority of people, staying at home, wearing masks, and standing 6 feet apart is utterly pointless. It accomplishes nothing positive and only takes your focus and thoughts away from so many things that you should actually care about and pay attention to. As just one example, if you are a young, healthy American, you are far more likely to be killed by the police than to die from COVID-19. If you don't believe me, go look up the statistics. In fact, there are all sorts of things that are far more of a threat to your lives than what the media has forced you to hear about day after day after day. You have been deceived and manipulated. Yes, with misinformation and lies at times, but mostly by those in power constantly drawing your focus and your awareness toward this statistically trivial threat, which the vast majority of us never had any need to worry about in the first place. And now we come to the true evil behind this. It would be bad enough if the media and the government wasted your time and put you more at risk by continually drawing your focus where it doesn't belong, making you anxious about things you don't need to worry about. But instead, they hyped the threat and fed your fears so that you would put up with government forcing you to go along with things that are far more destructive, deadly, and evil than this virus ever could have been. For those who haven't yet seen my other video about why the shutdowns were moronic, insane, and downright evil and far more destructive than any virus, I will include a link to that in the description below. In short, for the vast majority of us, COVID-19 is not worth worrying about for one moment. It never was. Meanwhile, unjustified and unnecessary fear is being used to make people think that government has the right to tell you when you can work or run a business or go shopping, when you can leave your house, where you can go, has the right to monitor you and keep track of your movements and everyone you come into contact with, has the right to exercise complete control of everyone and everything in the name of protecting us from something that posed no significant threat to the vast majority of us. And a lot of people fell for it. Some people are still falling for it. Many were manipulated and scared into participating in their own subjugation and victimization by the authoritarian gang of parasites, crooks, and thugs known as government. And this is what governments have been doing all over the world for all of recorded history, using anything and everything to scare people into giving up their freedom, manipulating people's focus in such a way that they are scared into letting the ruling class have more and more money, power, and control. And when this particular fear-mongering stunt eventually fades away, I promise you they will do it again with something else. The question is, will you fall for it?